are Tyrians. We are many races, several professions. We practice the arts of combat as well as healing. We have foes, and we fight them without mercy. And it's time for us to claim back what is ours. It's time for us to claim back Tyria from the terror of the Elder Dragons. We can't go on living our lives in fear. We have to fight. We have to make a stand. This is our story. Welcome back with the lore segment of our show. Today, as we said before, we are going to talk about the Norn. First of all, I think we had some of the questions about it. Did we have any questions about the Norn, actually?
We had one. I mean, we can answer it now. It's not a bad one. It's kind of a speculative question, but again, Zoo Zebra asks, do you believe the Norn look too human and are too close to human resemblance that they won't be played as much? And I think people are going to play whatever they want to play if they want to play it. I mean, I know that's... But I do wonder why the Norn, they do look extremely humanoid.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about this later on to the lore, but Norn would be believed to be linked to the humans anyways. So why do they look human that much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The spirits of the wild are actually the human gods in disguise. Shh!
What?
They abandoned the humans hundreds of years ago, and now they have taken the Norn as their new champions. That's my hypothesis. I'm sticking to it.
Well, hopefully Grunth is like the owl or one of the ones that died.
Yeah. Mad King Thorn.
Bridger, I'm not the biggest fan of Grunth. I'm a Doom fan.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that because he's the one that bans people when they're caught cheating? It's like, yes! Thank you, dude.
That definitely helps my affection toward him. But I don't know. I find I like Doom a lot better. I don't like Grenth. I think he's a cheater who cheats.
That makes sense.
And I don't like him. So, but of course, I mean, if it wasn't for Grenth, then Guild Wars 2 would be riddled with permadeath. But whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, if Doom is still in charge, everybody would just permadeath every time you died. So.
Yeah. And then it would be EVE Online, so...
Oh,
you died, you lost all your stuff. It's okay, you got a clone. But not in Guild Wars 2. They don't have cloning technology yet. I'm sure the Asura are working on it, but it's not available just yet.
You can get kind of like a golem knockoff.
Yeah, we managed to download your brain into this golem. That'll be 1,300 gold, please. Oh, I'm sorry, your bank account doesn't cover it. Bye.
9 Berjalian Ectos. Sorry.
or just 500 karma points, whichever.
Yeah, right.
Which kind of segues into the origins, because we're saying why do the Norn look like humans? What are the origins of the Norn through ArenaNet's perspective? Well, let's talk about the origins and where ArenaNet came up with the concept of the Norn. Well, as we all know, their culture and the lifestyle is heavily influenced from Norse and Viking culture. The warrior looks, the Celtic. I did say Celtic. Celtic tattoos, but mostly
like they're basketball players. Awesome! They're so tall. They'd be easily the best Celtics. Like Larry Bird. Who's Larry Bird? You get Air. Air would be the best center ever for the Celtics. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But mostly about the names of the Norn. They come from Norse mythology, and the Norn in Norse mythology were equivalent to the Fates in Greek mythology. They were female being who ruled the destiny of the gods and men. Now, when I read this on Wiki, I didn't think of it much, but when I continued on reading, I was like, say what? Because basically the Norns, the female ones, the ones from the mythology, they're described as three powerful maiden giantesses. But there's a word for that. Powerful maiden giantesses, and that's Jotun. You remember those giants in their shiver peaks who keeps knocking you down with their massive clubs? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they come from that. So then I kept on reading and I kept finding these word references like Volsung. Volsung played a role in the Epic of Sigurd and the dragon Fafnir. But Volsung is also a merchant in Volsungstead in the Bjorum Marches in Iron North. He's involved in a quest called the Great Norn Aelmut. I'm not sure if it's Aelmut or Alimut.
It's Aelmut.
It's probably Aelmut.
Yeah. The joys of being French. But then you've got Fenrir. It's a Kvaldolf. I'm not sure how you pronounce those. It's a boss which looks like a two-headed lion-type beast that appear in the Norhart domains. Well, Fenrir in Norse mythology is depicted as a giant wolf and is a son of Loki, the Norse god of mischief. Anyone who's seen the Avengers know who Loki is.
Yeah. Mischief makes it sound so childish, though. It's like, oh yes, I sprinkle caltrops everywhere so nobody can run. It's so fun. Like,
I could totally imagine Loki doing that.
The earth. That's my mischief. Like, yeah, okay.
Army.
Oh my lord.
You heard it here first, folks. The Norn in Guild Wars 2 are actually frost giants.
There you go.
I think that's clear.
Yeah.
Where this is headed. I'm just getting there before you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I enjoy every bit of rant you have to say. But back to the origins. So this culture is widely inspired. The Norns, the Viking Norse culture, is widely inspired the Norn as we know them in Guild Wars now. There are several things you can find online that would relate the two, so if you want to have some fun at discovering which names was air quotes stolen, close air quotes, by ArenaNet, you'll probably spend hours doing research, but it's quite fun. I mean, I found many names from NPCs or creatures or, places in Iron North that are actual names in the Norse Viking culture.
Yeah, there's actually a Norn in in Gunnar's Hold in Guild Wars 1 and Eye of the North, whose first name is Tyr. I think that's how you pronounce it. Tyr, and he is the Norse god of victory and sacrifice, and he actually fights Fenrir in the Norse mythology, and he ends up sacrificing his right hand. But that's the mythology of it. But yeah, I know what you mean. There's actually, I found an example. Me being a mythology buff, I saw a Norn named Tyr, and I was like, oh, holy crap! And I did all the research on the Norn. I still don't like them, but I like the inspirations on it.
What's up with you not liking them and doing all that research anyways, huh?
Because I like mythology,
yeah.
And I decided I'd just bite the bullet, I guess.
Well, you did a good job. There you go.
Yeah, and actually, now that you mention it, that guy Tyr in Eye of the North, he's Tyr the Skald, I believe is what his name is. And a Skald is actually from Viking. The Skald in Viking culture, they were a court poet in the Viking Age, and they would recite or create new verses to kind of tell the story and good deeds and epic battles of Viking kings at the time, or high-ranking kind of aristocrat people. And actually, there are skalds in Guild Wars 2 that Norn, they're like traveling bards in Guild Wars 2 that the Norn want their stories to be told by skalds to other Norn. And that's how, they're all about tell my story after I'm gone. And one of their kind of goals is to have their story told by skalds in Guild Wars 2. So that's all kind of ties back into that Viking thing.
I would be the worst skald in the world. If a Norn came up to me and asked me, "Hey, go tell my story," I'd go up to him. I mean, it could be any Norn. It doesn't matter which one I do. He liked to fight. That's it.
Best eulogy ever.
Yeah, but that sums up the origins of, how ArenaNet would have created the Norn, basically. Next would be the physiology, appearance, and since you liked them so much, do you want to talk about that?
I think asking me, do I want to talk about that?
Would you please?
Absolutely.
Because there are some people out there that don't know Guild Wars 2 or Guild Wars 1 that don't know what they look like. So,
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's fair. I'm just saying. Yeah, the Norn, they do look very human. At first, I thought, like, when I was playing Guild Wars 1, and I first went to Eye of the North, I had no idea who the Norn were. And so when I ran across Jorah, I was like, who's that? I was like, okay, I don't know who you are.
Human.
Yeah, but then, like, because it was just in cinematic, she wasn't standing near anyone. And no, I would take that back. She was standing next to Ogden. Ogden was obviously already a dwarf, so I didn't really notice that she was 50,000 feet tall. So,
that's no exaggeration, folks.
That is literal. But and then, like, the cutscene ended, and then, like, I was, like, walking up next to her. I was like, holy, you what? You were twice of me. I know I intend to make my character short, but still, damn. But yeah, they look very human. But they are insanely tall. They're normally about 8 to 10 feet tall, I think. They're very muscular. They're very burly. They normally live up in the mountains where it's very cold and snowy. Mainly in the Eye of the North and the northern Shiver Peaks. So they all used to tend to have, like, very pale skin. However, now that they're kind of, like, branching out because of Jormak waking up and all of that, there are some that are kind of, like, moving around. I've seen a couple of them in Divinity's Reach, obviously, as well as Lion's Art. So those actually happen to be tan, and you can actually physically see that in the game, Guild Wars 2. As I kind of noticed it, I was like, oh my god, that's a neat little touch.
And then you can actually make your character tan as well when you go to create a Norn in character creation. Like tan or, like, darker skin and that kind of stuff.
Just got me so excited because I thought you just meant that you can make your character tan. I was like, I'm about to just type sleep out on the beach of Divinity's Reach and just have him sit there for an hour and get a nice little tan. But so excited.
Yeah, the more time you spend under the sun, you actually tan. Now, that would be a good thing. That would be a nice touch.
Well, then you have to deal with sunburn. Stay out too long.
And then you get a debuff.
For 5 karma points, you can buy sunscreen.
It's aloe that it's a squeezed aloe that you pulled off Zalari's head.
Aww. Anyway.
Yeah. But mainly one of the main differences between the humans and the Norn is that the Norn can communicate with the spirits of the wild and turn into a half Norn, half animal hybrid. In Guild Wars 1, this was typically mainly just a bear. That was the most common one that you saw. Like in Eye of the North, whenever you had to go talk to all the resurrection shrines to get your bounty and all of those things, you had to fight them first, and they all turned into a bear. So at first, when I was playing, I thought that was all that you could be. I thought they were just like were-bears. And then when I got into their story, I realized they had the other animals, like the wolf and the raven and blah, blah, blah. But now you can actually play as their 4 different forms in Guild Wars 2. When they transform into their animal form, all of their armor and their clothing is melded into their body when they transform. Now, key point here is that in Guild Wars 2, a Norn's weapons are not melded into their weapon.
And Norn's, you mean armor?
Yeah, they are melded. But in Guild Wars 1, they aren't. They actually like still hold their weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why exactly that is. I don't know if that's like lore wise, if there was some sort of like evolution in like I guess their technique or how it is that they transform, or
It's called retconning.
Shh, don't say that.
I don't even know what that word means. So I'm not. But or it's most likely, and this is what I'm thinking, but it's most likely a game mechanic change. But what's
Yep.
retcon mean?
Well, it looks way cooler, but of course it was a lot harder to figure out how to meld steel into your body. It's like, yep, we're going to take this giant pointy thing, and we're going to put that right in the thorax, right there.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
while we're in this form. How do you do it? Magic? A wizard did it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Merlin?
Yeah,
With
Merlin.
your spells and potions?
But yeah, it
Wait.
was weird because I thought that was what we were going to get to do in Guild Wars 2 was to be big bears or wolves with bows and arrows and swords.
Mhm.
That's
Because
what we-
you found that in Guild Wars 1, right? You saw that difference, that in Guild Wars they did fight with weapons, but not in Guild Wars 2.
Which I thought if they were going to do this is kind of weird because all the monsters and stuff you fight in Guild Wars 1 don't have weapons. Like they hit you with their claws or whatever.
Not the Etten. The Etten.
No, I'm not the Etten. Etten has a club. But if you think about, we talked about the Kodan a little before. They're big polar bear people, and they fight with weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'll use an axe and a sword. But the Norn, when they're in bear form or wolf form, they don't.
Yeah, but the Kodan, they're very smart, and they have their own, little, well, I wouldn't say little, but big cities floating on boaty iceberg stuff. They're pretty intelligent.
And the
Yeah,
Norn
but
are
I'm-
just dumb.
And
What?
that's not
what?
nice.
But yeah, I'm assuming, yes, it's probably a retcon, and it's just a game mechanic change.
Mm-hmm.
But
What is a retcon?
Really?
Don't give me that tone.
For those listeners who may not be aware, retroactive continuity is the alteration of previously established facts in a fictional work. Retcons are done for many reasons, including the accommodations of sequels or further derivative works in a series, wherein newer authors or creators want to revise the in-story history to allow a course of events that would not have been possible in the story's original continuity. For example, in Spider-Man the movies, originally he had the ability to cast web out of his arms, like naturally biological web. But in the most recent movie, they turned it back and said, no, actually he's a scientist and he figured out some cool device that would shoot this web-like stuff. So that's sort of an example, but not really a very good one, of retroactive continuity. Just
All
like,
right.
ignore what we said before. This is how reality is.
Okay, gotcha.
It's very shunned in the nerd community. Like, it's sort of a cop-out. Like, wait, why is something different now? Because it's always been different. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, anyway, that pretty much sums it up. Other than I guess just touching on their lifespan. I mean, it's theorized that the Norn can live to be really, really old, but none of them ever do because they all die in combat. Because nope, just gonna stop there. Don't be nice.
Dan, be
I
nice.
said that. I am. I had self-control that time.
That's
You should be proud
good.
of me.
Yeah, you're getting much better.
I'm maturing.
Uh,
Nice. All right. Well, I guess the next piece we'll go to is kind of the culture of the Norn, and it ties back into kind of what Dint said, that they never live to old age because they are all about proving themselves and personal success and glory, and if I die, sing my song after I'm dead, kind of a thing.
mhm.
And in doing so, they end up dying a lot.
That
So-
reminds me why I wanted to play a Norn. I was reading in, was it the first book, The Ghost of Ascalon?
I think so, yeah.
When you have the Norn guy and he just like sees this ridiculous Kralkatoric monster and he's like, well, that looks like glory. See you guys later. I'm gonna go to die now. Like, remember me and sing of my glory as they go. They're like, but you're gonna die. That thing's huge. Yeah, isn't it awesome? Like, really? How do you have species or a race of people that actually survives to have kids with that attitude of like, yep, I'm gonna die, but isn't it gonna be awesome, man? Like, you gotta have those spirits of the wild watching over them, because otherwise that thing dies out after 3 generations, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Oh,
How
seriously.
are you not extinct? That's my question.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's,
they have lots of babies. 400 babies!
Ouch.
Is that a power thirst?
That was power.
That's awesome. I haven't watched that video in years.
Ugh.
The
But-
Norn.
But here's the question, though.
Heard it here first.
But here's the question, though. How are Norn Babby formed?
Oh.
How are Norn what?
Internet reference. The podcast.
Ah, sorry. Wah, wah, wah.
How our babby formed. How girl get pregnant. For those of you following along and want to play the home game, do a Google search for how our babby formed. And you'll figure it out. Anyway.
Spell it like it sounds.
Basically,
Moving on to culture.
the original Norn was Leroy Jenkins, basically, is what we're getting at.
Basically, yes, that must be where the culture started. Like, somebody started the teachings of, like, oh, we must obey the wise old guy, and the wise old guy's like, if you see something awesome, go do it, but make sure that people are watching, so that they will tell everyone else how awesome you are. And everybody's like, oh, we gotta write this down. Yes, this is good stuff. Like, yep, we're gonna keep passing this down for generations.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you want to be that guy where you're going into the, Ascalonian catacombs and, you're role-playing and your whole team's like, all right, here's the plan. The next boss is in the next room. We got to do this, this, and this. And you just want to be like, nope, I got this. See you later, guys. And just run in there and screw up everything.
Yeah, if you all come with me, it won't be as glorious for me. But, there's gotta be, like, that person that's born every couple generations that just goes, wait a minute. You see a whole bunch of danger and you're running towards it? What is this? I mean, come on. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Like, ostracize this idiot. What do they know?
He likes to
Not running
read.
towards danger. What's their problem?
I would be interested if we did somehow find somewhere in the Norn story or otherwise, like, this 200-year-old Norn that kind of works for the Derman Priory or something, because he shunned the Norn way of life and just wanted to become a scholar. And locked himself away.
I
They're
think
all idiots.
Wiki says that a Norn can live up to 120 years old, though.
Oh, snap.
So I don't think you'll see a Norn that's older than this. They live a little bit longer than humans. Well, 120, just a little bit longer. But I mean, that would be where they would actually be way too old to continue on living, I think.
Well, you mean if you, treat yourself right and don't have, 20 or 30 years of getting the crap kicked out of you fighting for glory, you might be able to live a little longer than 120.
Well, I don't know. That's what Wiki says.
Yeah.
Wiki's my god.
But, yeah, I mean, like we said, that's pretty much almost sums up all of the Norn behavior. It's all about glory. If the challenge comes up, I'm going to face it head on, and if I die, sing a story about me. Those scalds that we talked about, have them sing your story.
That may explain their massive physique, because only the biggest, most badass guys or girls would ever come back from one of these, like, hey, glory, let's go do this. Like, only the best, most fit survive to come back and have 400 babies. Like, that's just the way it is. And so you eventually get this massive race of superhumans.
Right.
And that goes
All
back
it takes.
to your kind of evolutionary theory, but we'll go in like a Darwinist kind of natural selection for the Norn. That's how they became this.
Yeah, I mean,
They looked like humans, and then
Yeah.
they just slowly bred up to giant Hulk monsters.
Right, so if they have sort of an evolutionary biology history on the planet of Tyria, whether or not that's one of the things that Tyria has, obviously they've got magic, they've got gods, it's a very different kind of world, so it's entirely possible that it doesn't have evolutionary biology, or it hasn't been around for long enough for evolutionary biology to matter, but it's entirely possible that, if there's like 10,000 years ago, humans and Norn were the same race, and then they split off and they lived on different continents for 10,000 years, and now you've got 6, 8, 10 foot tall humans now.
Yeah. And I would be interested, it'd be great if, we could get an answer, or somebody wrote like a letter to ArenaNet, and they're like,
ArenaNet's
FYI.
listening right now. We didn't think of that. Oh man, where did they come from?
Crap.
A wizard did it. That's always the answer.
Yeah, it's magic, or the Elder Dragons did it. That's pretty much how it works in Guild Wars 2. That's the reason for everything happens.
Well, I have my theory on that, but I'll talk about that way later in the show.
All right.
So you guys hold on to that.
Yeah. So again, what I got out of Ghost of Ascalon is this mindset of all about being for glory and all that. It led to two different types of Norn, and the one guy, Dougal, he kind of mentions this as he's looking at one of the Norn characters, and he says, Norn were healthy, hardy, proud people, quick to anger and equally quick to forgive. In his time in leaving Evanhawk, Dougal had met good Norn and bad Norn. The good Norns treated every day as an adventure, every problem as a challenge, and every foe as a chance for personal glory. Most people didn't understand how dangerous the dark places of the world could be. The Norn actually relished exploring them. And bad type are boastful, judgmental, and unpleasant to those around them. They're bullying and insulting, and every achievement by others, they act as if it diminishes their own achievements.
So you get bullies in the Norns too.
Yeah. And the other thing is this whole for glory, it kind of makes them a very optimistic kind of race. Even though Jormag took them out of their homeland and now they're working on reclaiming it, they're just kind of seeing that as another challenge to overcome, that one day we'll be able to take back our homeland from Jormag. It's just a matter of time till we find the right person. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, then that kind of... I know you wanted to talk about the tooth of Jormag and that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not really all that much. It's just sort of like back to my spiel there about their appearance and physiology. A lot of my friends that I've been trying to get to play Guild Wars 2 can't really comprehend how big these dragons are going to be. And so I always use the picture of Jormag's tooth as a reference for them. I said, okay, look at this tooth. Do you see the two little guys standing right next to the tooth? They say yes. I was like, okay, that person is 10 feet tall. Okay? So think about that. That is 10 feet tall compared to that tooth. Now I want you to think of one of your teeth. Think of how small that is compared to the rest of your body. Okay, now take that tooth and go from there. That is the size of Jormag.
For those playing the home game, the tooth is about 6 to 8 times the size of a Norn.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and so that's about 60 to 80 feet of a tooth. So
thereabouts.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think that the game you're playing has big enemies, I don't know. I think Guild Wars may have you there. Look at your MMO. Now the Guild Wars. Now look back at your MMO. Guild Wars.
I'm on a horse.
I'm on a centaur.
No. Yeah, I was gonna say, because
I'm outrunning a centaur.
Be on horses in Guild Wars 2, so that
I don't need that.
Oh,
I don't need to be on a horse. I can outrun a centaur. Who are you kidding?
Now that's a good point.
Yeah, and again, the Norn, Vikings, so they're all about, if you can best them in a fight, then they respect you. If you can drink a lot of alcohol and hold your own, they'll respect you.
Maybe I'll actually have a...
And they have those ale moots that Naveen mentioned earlier, which is basically a get-together where they have competitions of skill, but you can only be in them if you're drunk. So you need to get drunk first and then try to outcompete other drunk Norn.
So it's Norn beer pong.
As awesome as that sounds, I don't think it holds a candle to Meattoberfest, though. To be honest, I mean, I sort of mentioned all the things that I didn't mention the char before when I was about Meattoberfest. That's awesome, like a giant barbecue, just all day, every day, forever. Let's do Meattoberfest. I'll take that ale moot, but ale moot sounds awesome too. So the Norn.
I mean, first, Norn do marry. That's a fact. They marry, but the marriage can only happen between two of equal reputation. So let's say you've got a male Norn who has vanquished a cave troll that was undefeated for years, and he met a female Norn whose best achievement was to tie her own shoes. Well, that would not happen. He would have to find a Norn that would have vanquished something big, and then they would be allowed to marry. A good example would be in Eye of the North during the quest Prenuptial Disagreement. One of the Norn dialogue is, what is it? Wait, it is Norn costume that only equals may marry. And then you go on with your quest, and after defeating the boss, you go back for your reward, and the Norn exclaims, "What? You have defeated the Leviathan? My mother's killer? This cannot be in Northridge! That task was to be ours, and because of your insatiable hunger for glory, your reputation eclipses mine. Now I'm doomed to a life of shame and loneliness. I cannot be seen with you, much less marry you." So basically, yeah, if you haven't...
So the player characters ruined a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's funny because even if you're playing a female character or a male character, if you're a male character, you're gonna be talking to a female Norn.
Oh.
And if your character is a female, you're gonna be talking to a male Norn, and they both have a different dialogue, but it comes up to the same thing.
And actually, if I remember this one correctly, aren't they infatuated with the player character?
Yeah,
and they wanted to marry the player character, so a human character, a Norn, wanted to marry you, but you go out and beat this Leviathan or whatever it is, and they can't marry you anymore, so you're no longer... They can't ever marry you. So.
No,
I'm fine with
exactly. Oh, that's fine, Dent. I wouldn't mind.
Actually brings up
interspecies and strange.
Well, yeah, actually, I think it was Jeff Grubb. They did an interview with him, and they said, "What did you ever regret about Guild Wars 1?" And he said it was that mission, because that sparked all the kind of, can Norn and humans have a baby? Mm-hmm. Because this Norn was all about, marrying you until you, made yourself better than them, essentially. But I read somewhere that Norns and human can have sex, but you would not be able to fertilize the egg for some reason, so they could never actually have a baby.
So that means they are actually two separate species by the definition of, the classical definition of biology. When you try to determine whether two species are actually separate species, it's can they breed and produce viable offspring. Right. So all the different dog breeds can generally, I'm pretty sure,
I think so.
produce viable offspring. You can have a pit bull and a poodle, and they can produce viable offspring. But you can't. I don't know if wolves and dogs still can or not, if they're still close enough. But I don't think so. I think that's why they're considered separate species, etc. So that's very interesting. That so that sort of confirms that that the Norn are not just giant humans physiologically. They're different enough so that they can't produce viable offspring. I find that fascinating. I love science stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. Like, if a Norn is in their Norn form, and they're not like a were-raven or whatever.
Whoa! Are you going into bestiality here, Dan?
And that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. Does it still
I can't control it anymore!
Very humanoid.
It could happen.
Very humanoid. Because I'm asking, like, does it count as bestiality? Because they're still like, they're basically human but taller, and they can just turn into like a were-rabbit.
I don't think. God, it's got teeth. A were-rabbit. Anyway,
it's got teeth. I don't know, but it's a good question. But I would have to say,
I like that one for the ArenaNet interview.
Yeah,
this interview's over.
Is it a good question? It's a good question. It's a good question.
Well, it got me thinking. Like, would it be considered bestiality? But anyways, we're not talking about, it's not a sex talk show,
where we
but...
answer all your bestiality questions.
There you go.
And that just pegged us as one of the most interesting podcasts on all of YouTube.
I know. Yeah, we're one of the few that actually talk about lore, and we are the only one who talks about
sex.
Moving on.
Anyway, so yeah, relationships, Naveen, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
or start it.
Yeah, or start. Yeah.
Going back. Well, I was talking about the wedding, but during a wedding there would be a giant celebration, so lots of food and boasting and lots of drinking, lots and lots of drinking. Also, one person is selected at the wedding to tell about the tales of the Norn being wed, just to prove that both of them can be married and are of equal statures. So, if you don't have a witness to prove that both of the Norns have done something great as achievements or, as equal stature, if both of them can tie their own shoes, then that's good. They can get married. But you need someone to talk in both parties' favors. The Norn families may raise children. Parents stay together, but they may end up living in different cities after their children have been raised to fend for themselves. So once a Norn gets to a particular achievement, let's say they killed a great boar or defeated a veteran spider, anything that could bring fame, that Norn will be considered an adult. There is no ceremony for having stepped into adulthood, but there is great recognition. The Norn have a monogamous relationship. So they will have one mate and they will stay with them. And although they can have sexual relations, like what we said, they cannot procreate. As for death, the passing of a great Norn would generate huge celebrations. And do they bury or burn the dead? Well, I'm not sure, but Jeff Grubb, in one of his interviews, he said that he believed that they burned their dead. But if we look at the Norse mythology, they would burn or bury their dead. So I'm not sure if the Norn would prefer either or, but much rather how.
I'm not sure, but isn't the current situation like, well, we better, burn the dead because otherwise they become, servants of Jormag or something like that? Mm-hmm. Like, isn't that the big problem they're having? It's very similar, like Game of Thrones style. Like, okay, we go off to fight, and then those that went off to fight come back as, completely mind control. But maybe the ones that come back are still alive and not undead. Is that the implication? Because I know it's been a while since I read Destiny's Edge. Or Edge of Destiny, rather.
That's a very good question, because I haven't read that book.
Well, in the very beginning, Air is just a regular, Norn in the village, and she's really, very, pessimistic because every time somebody goes off to fight, the Sons of Svanir and Jormag's champion, they come back. She makes references that they'll come back as basically the Dragon's champions instead, and I think they're probably not undead. So maybe that's not even a possibility.
Well, I think part of that is they have to be defeated by, I think, an ice brood. Like, obviously, if they're killed in the Tarnished Coast, they're just dead.
Right.
So I guess you'd. Me personally, if I was a Norn and they died in somewhere fighting Jormag's minions, I would probably burn them to be safe. But I mean, if they're killed in a far off land, you could probably bury them and get away with it. I think.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's specifically I'm talking about, around Holbreck where they're still fighting off the dragon, champions and Sons of Svanir and things like that, where there's a chance where you could get turned and converted. I don't know if it's upon death or not, though. That's something I don't think that I remember them mentioning. But maybe, you'll get 6,000 emails from people saying, "Oh, totally. It was right here, page 22, line 3. What'd you miss? Come on."
Yeah, it's entirely possible. And I mean, if you go off of the end beta events with the Kralkator corrupted, you had to die to become a corrupted. So we could just say that based on that without actually looking it up.
Sure, there you go.
Yeah, so we'll go that's good. It's in ArenaNet game mechanics. That's our reasoning. There you go. Okay. So Naveen, is there anything else on the relationship, bury the dead kind of stuff for the Norn?
I think she's still on break.
I didn't even see that. Okay.
Spirits of the Wild is next on the list here, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you actually want to talk about that, Bridger? Because we didn't have
the best way to talk about the Spirits of the Wild is to also talk about the recent history. And we kind of covered this on Tales of Tyria too, but it's a story that I love talking about, is the recent history with regards to Jormag and the Norn, because basically in Guild Wars 1, the Norn were located sort of in the far Shiver Peaks. Is that the correct term for it? The northern or the northern Shiver Peaks? And that area in Guild Wars 2 is sort of a giant lake/pond, the home of Jormag now. It's like he basically destroyed a glacier or caused a glacier to come down or something like that, terraformed the landscape to his, will, essentially, and destroyed the homeland of the Norn. However, because we talked about before, the Norn are always seeking glory, right? So all of these great Norn heroes, when Jormag awoke, they went off to fight Jormag and wound up, they didn't come back. And, so more of them were like, oh, well, it's our turn now. We're going to go get glory. And they didn't come back. And so it was like the greatest heroes were going off and dying and becoming sort of champions of Jormag instead, like these thralls of Jormag. And so basically, the spirits of the wild are essentially demigods for all intents and purposes, and they are the ones that are in Guild Wars 2 and featured prominently include bear, raven, snow leopard, and wolf. But the ones that we know that were also, before Jormag awoke, also, lesser but also very impactful spirits were ox, owl, wolverine, and eagle. And these are no, gods like the human gods. These are these directly influence and talk to the Norn. I mean, they have these basically shamans, which they call Havron, that can communicate directly with the spirits and receive aid directly from them, request and receive aid. So these are demigods that interact with and intercede in the Norn's life, and they basically, because the Norn worship and revere them, they see themselves as sort of protectors of the Norn race. And whether or not they had anything to do with the germination or genesis of the Norn race, I'm not sure if we know about that, but that might be part of it. But essentially, you have these spirits watching the race that they watch over go off and die over and over again. The next group is going off to die, and they realize that the Norn culture will not let them run away. Normally, like they just won't do it. They'll fight themselves to death, and the Norn will be extinct because they won't give up their home that way. So all of the spirits basically have to convince the Norn, no, you can't. You have to leave. This is too much for you right now. And they kind of give this sort of thing. You can fight them later, but for now you have to leave. You're not strong enough yet. You've lost too many. And in order to basically buy time for the exodus of the Norn race, of the Norn people south into the Shiver Peaks to where they currently are stationed in the game at the new capital of Holbrecht, there were 4 spirits that stayed behind. And that was Ox, Owl, Wolverine, and Eagle. And for all intents and purposes, they're considered to be dead. Now, we know for a fact that Owl is confirmed dead. And, spirits have been sort of quote-unquote defeated in the past, is my understanding. But none have necessarily died. But because they have, lingered on as minor spirits and maybe grown in power again later. But they know that Owl is dead, and one of the sort of last acts of defiance that Owl had was basically she dove into Jormag's mouth and basically like scratched the hell out of the inside of his throat as a last act of defiance to sort of do as much damage as possible. And then his jaws came down and crushed Owl, and the shaman, the Havrun, that was connected to Owl has confirmed that he can no longer speak to her and no longer contact her and no longer feels a connection to her. And they know that she is dead. And it's such a sad and, sort of, inspiring but sad story of like this spirit basically giving up her life, this demigod saying, I am sacrificing myself for these people. And we don't know about Ox, Wolverine, and Eagle because there wasn't really anybody at the battle that was able to come back. I believe that this story of what Owl did was basically seen through the eyes of the shaman, if I'm not mistaken. So as a result, Ox, Wolverine, and Eagle haven't had a shaman sort of born into the role of that shaman with the ability to communicate with them for a long time. So they've known that those spirits existed. The people have been able to communicate them, but they're not on the level of the Havrun. So they don't know if Ox, Owl, and Eagle, Ox, Wolverine, and Eagle are actually dead or not. But they know that nobody normal has contacted them. But it's still possible they are sort of in a minor spiritual form that can be contacted by Havrun. But we don't know that yet. The ones that are left, the ones that went with the Norn to see them through the passage south and to help watch over them that are remaining, is Bear, Raven, Snow Leopard, and Wolf. And you learn a lot about them in the Norn starting area because there's different heart dedicated to each one of them and what they represent. And they're really cool little area there, especially the Snow Leopard one. You get to play with baby snow leopards. It's awesome.
But what I find really interesting about the spirits of the wild and kind of like their relationship with it really does kind of tie in with them being inspired by Norse mythology and lore from the Germanic type of religion, I guess, when it comes to how like the Norse people and their relationship with like their gods and their demigods that they have in their mythology and their religion. It was never really sort of like a worship type thing. It was always very, at least from what my understanding is that it felt like they were brethren, like they were kind of like a family, and so it was never really worship based or anything like that, or they were never revered or anything like that.
Respectful than, yeah, you're right. I may have used the wrong term, but I agree.
No, you're perfectly fine. I'm not correcting you or anything. I'm just ranting now. I don't know. I find it so interesting when it comes from the speculation of them being inspired by Norse mythology because of that right there, not just because of the names that they've thrown in there or anything like that, or just even the similarity between the name Norse and Norn, but they've gone into detail with like, I guess their kind of like belief system when it comes to the spirits that they ended up working with. And yeah, you're right. The being very respectful of them is very accurate, I think, especially with the whole story of the owl thing. It was very, I guess, camaraderie based. It's not like they worshipped them and then they just kind of like sat back and prayed and hoped that the gods would do everything. They did something to, I guess, kind of like show glory or show honor for whatever aspect that they were trying to represent, whether it be the Norse with Thor or Odin, or whether it be the Norn with the bear or the snow leopard spirit.
Yeah, and it's actually, like you said, they revere the spirits than they actually worship them. Whereas like a human would say like, oh, Dwayna, help me, whatever. The Norn are like, Raven, give me, well, it would be wisdom, I guess, not strength. It'd be bear, give me strength. But that kind of a thing, as in right. Help me out, not do it for me.
Right.
And what actually is interesting is they do acknowledge that the human gods exist, but they don't call them gods. They call them spirits of action.
Mm-hmm.
And they also don't refer to them by their name. Like they call Balthazar war and Cormyr knowledge and Melandru nature. But they acknowledge that they exist, but they still don't, they don't consider them gods, but they consider them like a spirit of action as opposed to spirit of the wild.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and what we actually heard on one of the Jeff Grubb interviews, there were 3 other spirits that he mentioned that have pretty much never been mentioned again, so they may have retconned, there's that word again, them right out of the whole mythos of Guild Wars. They mentioned the spirit of worm, the spirit of minotaur, and the spirit of hare, as in a rabbit.
Yeah, not hair as in...
Yeah, your hair.
Pigtails.
But
Get running, Baltimore.
Hairspray. We said that already. We didn't. Not hair.
Yeah. But worm, is that with a Y?
You, as in like the big ice things that they have. Okay. Which is actually interesting that you can summon a worm as one of the racial skills for a Norn.
Neat.
And Jeff Grubb said they kind of started off with hair as a joke. Like, they made it up in the office, and they're like, wouldn't it be funny if you worshipped a rabbit? and they kind of just ran with it. But now it's gone from Guild Wars. Although, for one of the karma vendors in the Norn starting area, I think it's for only 5 karma, something really small. The character's name is Bjarni, and you can get a hair totem. And it's one of the little things that goes in your items on the right side of the jewelry kind of slots. And it's the hair totem, and the quotes when you pick it up and what it says on it, it says, "Bunny watches us too." So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Bunny
Because
watches
you know
us
that's a
too.
reference to it.
Yeah.
It has
so
to be. I don't know. I think I'm kind of sad that they took it out because I think that it would be interesting. I don't know. I find it so redundant, and then this isn't just me insulting the Norn because they're big, burly, and freakish, but this is just me I don't know. I don't like the Norn race because it's so redundant when it comes to the personality. It's all the same. It is all the same, and so I don't know. I would find it so much more interesting if, say, they had incorporated the spirit of the hare into it, to where you would actually have a more philosophical type Norn, as opposed to just all of them want to go die.
So you're saying rabbits are philosophical then?
No, what I'm saying is that it's not
Doc?
necessarily more of a, I don't know, it's not as a fight type creature. It's more of a
Run
flight
away,
type.
I'm a bunny.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you were to think about, I don't know where I'm going with this. Someone take it.
Well, I guess I should come out and say that I can't say for 100% that they are not in the game. Some,
Okay.
but from what I played, which wasn't a lot of the Norn storyline, and I think if you were to even look them up on the wiki, you probably won't find them. But I mean, it's interesting that they worship a minotaur and a worm and a bunny as well, but they're probably lesser spirits that don't have a Havrun or anything like that. But that's my little extra piece on Norn Spirits of the Wild.
Now, on to the evil Norn.
Exactly.
Because every race has to have an evil side. You've got the separatists, which are the human evil side, and that don't want peace with the Char. And then you've got the Char Flame Legion. They're the evil side of the Char. You've got the Nightmare Court for the Sylvari, which think that the ends justify the means, and so you should do all kinds of evil things to stop the dragons. And then you've got the Inquisition for the Asura, that I have no idea what their deal is, but I know that they don't like the regular Asura. They have a disagreement about some kind of alchemy. I don't know. But anyway, the Sons of Svanir are the evil version of the Norn, this evil faction. And even the dwarves had an evil faction in Guild Wars 1. You had, what was it, the Stone Summit. There you go. Yeah, they so everybody has to have an evil faction for you to fight in the Tyrian universe. It's I believe it's called the evil twin syndrome, just writ large.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Who wants to talk Sons of Svanir?
Well, Bridger, do you know anything about the Sons of Svanir?
Svanir was a bear dude, corrupted by Jormag, I think. In the first game, something about his sister had to slay him. I'm out of it. I got nothing.
Well, basically in the first game, Jorah, which is the main Norn that we venture with in the Ida North, her brother was called Svanir, and when they went to hunt on Drakkar Lake, Jorah's brother, he heard Jormag's voice over Drakkar Lake, and the voice promised power and prey, and then Svanir began communicating with it. He became corrupted, and he became the champion of Jormag, known as the Norn Bear. And when you play, you can... I don't know if... I think everyone here played Guild Wars 1, but I mean, for the listeners who didn't, you have to chase him all over the northern Shiver Peaks, because he became this half-Norn, half-bear creature covered in ice, and he was eventually slain by Jorah, so his own sister killed him. Over the past years, other Norns were corrupted by Jormag's voice, one by one, and the dragon gained power from the Norn it corrupted and hastened its awakening. So since Jormag's awakening, it has attracted more Norns and transformed them into Icebrood. basically, they're the sons of Svanir. The Norn, they don't see them as evil being. They're allowed to coexist with others as long as they don't prove themselves as a threat. So, but unlike most Norns, the sons of Svanir do not remain independent for their strength, but rather barter for it. There is one thing also, it's that in the Sons of Svanir, there are no females, and that's because of Jorah's, air quote, crimes against the dragon. So since she killed her brother, which was, now the Norn bear, that's seen as a very bad thing through the Sons of Svanir, so no females are allowed. And, I mean, Sons of Svanir pretty much says it, right? So
they do put a lot of the...
Svanir sounds weird.
Pardon me?
That's because offspring of Svanir sounds strange.
Sons and daughters. That's a mouthful. It's also because,
it could have been children of Svanir.
Progeny of
Svanir. Yeah.
So there's no females in Sons of Svanir, and they have no Havrun to Jormag. So the shamans of Jormag only preach corruption and feed lies. So that's about it about the Sons of Svanir, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't. Bridget, you have anything else you know of Sons of Svanir wise?
No.
You played more Norn stuff than I think any of us, because.
Yeah, I mean, in basically they use the Sons of Svanir as instigators and the bad guys of the early Norn areas, because the Sons of Svanir obviously have they follow the dragon as a spirit. They keep sort of the culture of Norn and as spirits being important, but they now see the dragon as the only spirit worth worshiping, and they do kind of worship the dragon. Whereas, as you were speaking about before, the regular Norn culture sort of reveres and sees the spirits more as like parental figures almost, rather than something to be worshipped. They see them as mutual respect. Like they help us and aid us and guide us, and we respect them for that. Not simply because they are what they are and they're gods and they deserve to be worshipped. Whereas it seems to me, from my limited understanding, the Sons of Svanir sort of worship Jormag, and they are he corrupts the hearts of Norn in the same way as sort of the one ring corrupts the hearts of men. Like, it promises power and glory and all the things that a Norn wants, and so you have to have a strong iron will to resist such a call. And so obviously Svanir managing to connect directly with Jormag, that's a really interesting thing. And you said that nobody else except for Svanir ever talked directly to Jormag?
Nope. Except for the not the Sons of Svanir, but I mean that Jormag speaks to the one that become the champion of Jormag, so the Norn bears.
Probably speaks to the Sons of Svanir.
Yeah, I don't know if they speak.
Or communicates in some way.
Yeah. But that's about it. I mean, no one else speaks directly to the dragon that I know of.
Is anyone else noticing a pattern here with, like, the evil groups and the races? Like, for example, the Sons of Svanir. They... Okay, just as kind of like a refresher, just real quick. The human gods and the what once was the Char gods are to the Norn for their spirits. So, that's basically, the spirits are the Norn's mythology. They're celestial, whatever.
Did you die?
He's typing.
Wait, that was a joke, but...
Oh.
All right. Well, the pattern that I noticed, actually, is all the evil factions seem to have some, like, anti-progressivism, sort of baked into them. Like the Flame Legion, the history of the Flame Legion is they wouldn't allow, female members of the Char society to have any rank or any responsibility. They were basically just slaves. They were a lower caste of the Char, right? That was the evil one. And then the good Char, are now cosmopolitan and progressive, and females can do everything that males can do in the Char society. And you see the same thing in the Norn. It's like, oh, females are evil. None of them can be cool. This is a bro house here. No girls allowed. And I think you kind of see that in all of the evil groups. They have some kind of anti-progressive movement. Though I don't know. I mean, in the same kind of thing, I guess, in the Sylvari is the evil version of the Sylvari is the ends justify the means. So we can torture and be cruel, and that's okay because the ends justify the means.
Yeah, no problem. And what actually,
it's okay. I picked it up. I picked up the spaghetti. We're okay.
It's al dente.
Yeah.
It's al dente. It's al flore.
Al dente.
I get the pun.
What actually would be interesting is playing as a female Norn through the story and to see how things differ when you go against the Sons of Svanir because you can't become one of them.
Yeah, that's true.
I wonder if the dialogue would be any different.
Most likely.
I would think, and I mean, if you think about that too.
I mean, like if the bad guys were yelling, "You will become one of us" when you're a man, when you're a female, it's like, "You must die for your crimes" or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. I mean, that's the kind of attention to detail that we've come to expect from ArenaNet. I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that makes Air, like, because all these other female Norn and someone like Air, they watch all these people turn to Icebrood around them, and they I mean, they never could, so I don't know if they look at that as, a better situation where they won't come back and attack their kinfolk, or, I mean, I guess it'd probably be better because you don't have to worry about your body, rising or however it is that you become an Icebrood. Although, I guess she kind of had it rough since she was originally a statue maker, and everybody kept requesting statues and then going off and turning into Icebrood, so it's kind of big wasted effort.
It's true. They came back as Icebroods. They can't appreciate their cool statue.
Yeah, exactly. Spent all this time turning into whatever she was, bear, I think, and then ripping off, cutting the stone, and making these nice statues, and then everybody's just like, "Oh, sorry, we're here to kill you. I'll pay you for the statue later."
I'll make a garage sale for it.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, but, back to what I was saying about the pattern thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm noticing that for a lot of the evil groups within the races, they all were so quick to rush to a new god.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the humans, I know the White Mantle aren't necessarily the evil group, it's the Separatists, but I mean, the White Mantle were quick to rush to the Mersat because they viewed them as new gods. The Flame Legion for the Char. Now,
they jumped around. They were.
Oh yeah, they jumped around, but now they quickly jumped to whatever his name is, Balefire.
Yeah.
And now it's like, even I wasn't expecting that with the Norn because they don't really have gods, they have spirits. But now it's like Jormag woke up and they're like, oh, new spirit.
Yeah.
I'm finding, because they don't view them as gods, they view them as spirits. So, of course, they would think it is a spirit because they think that is the mightiest form that there can be. And
actually, yeah, now that I think about it, they don't refer to it as Jormag. They refer to it as dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Just
like this, just dragon. Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the Sylvari and Asura, though. Do they have...
Yeah.
Well, the
really.
shadow... The shadow... What the hell am I talking about?
The Nightmare Court.
Yes, the Nightmare... What were you going to say?
I mean, the Nightmare Court, they don't really have a sort of belief system. But so far, I guess what I can tell is that all of the groups are just going against what can be viewed as the religious beliefs of their respective race. So since the Sylvari don't really have a religion, they're, I guess, very Buddhist, I guess you could think, because they just kind of have like a very set of virtues that they need to live by. And then you have the Sylvari, or the Nightmare Court for the Sylvari, which I guess can be viewed as like atheists, but not as hardcore as Char. Or they're just like, no, forget virtues, just do whatever as long as you get the.
Well, I see the Sylvari sort of more based on Greek philosophers, right? Because they have those the Ventari tablet teachings. So it's if you have to sort of combine it with a religion, it's more like a Buddhism sort of thing. It's not about gods. It's about philosophy and, goals in life and things like that. I mean, they as a race, they have the major goal as dictated sort of by the pale tree of, stop the dragons from destroying the world. But they have certain tenets that they're not allowed to break that are on the Ventari tablet. So that seems to me more of sort of a Greek philosophy or a sort of Buddhism philosophical kind of direction of their society.
Right, and with the Asuran, I'm not entirely sure what would be the closest comparison for them, but they do believe in the greater alchemy, which can kind of be viewed as sort of like, I don't know.
There's like some philosophies about how, we are the universe experiencing itself. It's like essentially that the universe, that kind of the Gaia concept of like the universe is us and we are the universe and our consciousness is the universe's consciousness. That sort of big thinking kind of thing. I think that I get that impression when they talk about the eternal alchemy, is they're talking about we are the biological processes of the universe.
Right. And so far with the Inquest or the Inquisitor or whatever their name is for the Asuran, they are the only evil group for the race that doesn't just completely stray from the religious or as close as it can be to religious views of their respective race.
Well, they do in a sense, because the Asura, their whole thing is, we believe in the eternal alchemy, which, as Bridger was saying, is kind of this whole massive, universe, big picture kind of a thing. And the whole reason they join the different colleges and do the different things is to further research this eternal alchemy, because they want to completely understand how it works, and they believe once they understand all the inner workings of it, then they can master Tyria, or a mastery of all of Tyria. Right. The Inquisition, or Inquest, they think that the eternal alchemy is just like any other machine, and that it can be controlled and forced to do their bidding and make it do whatever they want. So they kind of are fitting into what you're kind of saying, where they're all about where the Asura just want to understand it to know how it works. The Inquisition says, we don't care how it works, we just want it, and we want to control it and make it do what we want. So it fits kind of to what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was just the pattern I was noticing, so if anyone wants to take it from here, carry on.
Well, the next piece I have here is just the government, which for the Norn, there really isn't a government, because they're all they're super individualistic and all about glory. It's
a very tribal sort of, I get the impression it's like a sort of a wise men, council of wise elders, essentially leading the villages for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and it's part to that, that whole thing and the glory, that they don't want to really kneel or, kind of bend their will to anybody else just because they say that they're the leader. So the way they kind of develop a, quote, leader, if you will, is someone that did some great achievement. And they don't really follow their leadership per se. They respect them as having done something so great, and will see them as, a quote, leader. And that Newt Whitebear is the master of Holbrook, and he's kind of charged with keeping Holbrook safe because of, I can't remember exactly what it was that he did to get that kind of position. I think he actually founded Holbrook, I believe.
I will be talking about that in the history segment.
Okay, then I won't get into that. But, his sons actually lead the Wolfborn, which is the closest thing to, say, like a Seraph Guard that the Norn have in Holbrook. But you can't actually apply to be a Wolfborn. You have to know somebody in the Wolfborn and prove your worth, and then they can accept you in as this kind of little peacekeeping group. But knowing the Norn, the total amount of them that's there to keep probably all of Holbrook safe is probably like 5 guys. Right. Because that's what they brought to fight the Great Destroyer. We have, all the Asura and all of us humans and all the dwarves are transformed by the, power of the Great Dwarf. And then the Norn show up, and there's 5 of them. and Ogden Stonehealer goes, 5? You only brought 5? And Jorah goes, well, I thought 4 was enough. But, Olaf's daughter said she wanted to come, so we went with 5.
That's awesome.
So
Okay, I got to get going, but
All right.
I wanted to share one of my favorite things about the Norn is there's that one guy in Lion's Arch. If you go anywhere near the crafting section, you'll have heard him. He'll just all of a sudden burst out, "By the Raven, what savings!" That's my favorite Norn in the entire game. Just out of nowhere, he's talking to some dude. And, "By the Raven, what savings!" He's so excited about savings. It's great. I just want to be a Norn so I can say, "By the X, something awesome." And I want to be an Asura so I can call people Buka. And I
Yeah.
want to be a Char so I can growl at people.
Well, you can just
Oh,
call me
man.
Buka whenever you want.
Oh, okay.
Because
you
I
do have
have the Buka tattoo.
Aha.
in New
So I
York.
don't have to be a specific race. That's good. That's good. All right.
You have that great Char voice, so
Yes. Ritlock Brimstone here. No. Somebody said Rantlock Bridgestone.
that's what it was. I was trying to think of that the other
Rantlock
day.
Bridgestone?
You need to make that a character. Steal that before somebody else
Might have
takes
to
it.
steal that. All right. Anyway, I got to get
All
going, guys. Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thank you
No
for being
problem.
It's great having you here.
Yep.
Maybe another time?
All right. Absolutely. You guys
All
have
right.
outlasted me. You've bested me on the field of talking.
Sorry.
It's okay.
All right.
Well, we'll see you later, Bridger, and thank you very much for being on the show, and keep up the amazing work that you've done with Tales of Tyria so far, and we'll be listening to your podcast for sure.
All right. Thanks.
All right,
Anybody who
cool.
wants to check it out is talesoftyria.com.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, Naveen, do you want to? I guess we're up to the history of the Norn. If you want to kind of, I know you're going to take that piece over, and we'll bring this kind of to a close after that.
Yep, sure, because we've pretty much touched the speculation Norn thing with Bridger anyways. But I think that the history of the Norn is very interesting, and people can learn a lot from this. And sit on tight, because I have a lot of notes.
All right.
But basically it works out like not much is known about the Norn history, but there's a lot of theories. And we first saw the Norn in Guild Wars 1, Eye of the North, when our human characters discovered the northern Shiver Peaks and the Eye in the North. But there's a theory of how the Norn race got to be on Tyria and why they are what they are now. The giant warriors who can shift shape into several aspects of Spirits of the Wild. Many years ago, there was a great storm described as the long-lasting blizzard which froze large sections of the sea, creating large islands of ice which the Kodan built sanctuaries on. Sanctuaries are immense towns. The storm lasted for many seasons and caused starvation among the Kodan race, which led to a small group leaving to look out for hunting grounds because they were basically starved. And those hunting grounds were further south. Now, that group left without much of an approval from the other Kodans, and they were told by the voices, and we'll explain who or what that is in a Kodan episode that we'll have sometime. The voices to stay and watch and see until the storm would cease. So those who left, regardless of what the voices had told them, they were never seen again. Now, the Kodan do not claim any connection or relationship to the Norn race, but some voices speculate that because the Norn's bear form look like the Kodan, the lost group of Kodan are an explanation of the origin of the Norn. And if this is true, then they would dub the Norn as failed Kodan, and that's why their true bear form has been replaced with a fragile, furless state. Because of this pressure from the shaman, the Kodan often treat the Norn as spiritual failures. So there you have it. This is how the Norn would have appeared on Tyria. Let's move on to the history as we know it. So we first met the Norn in Ida North, like I said before, the first expansion of Guild Wars campaigns. They helped our heroes and assisted them in the downfall of the Great Destroyer. Not long after, they held their lands in the far north Shiver Peaks against invading Char warbands, and their defense earned the respect of the Char, and something of a cooperative peace emerged from their mutual respect for each other, which lasted for 200 years. So, for nearly 200 years, the eastern border of the Shiver Peaks has been stable. The Char has, they're allowed passage through Gunner's Hold, and the lower canyons where the Norn had spread. In fact, and this is from the official Guild Wars 2 wiki, during the Searing, the Norn allowed the Char armies passage through the northern pass from Ascalon to Kryta, setting the stage for the Char invasion of the central human lands. Although this was not a sign of any alliance, it set the stage for the two races to live within a watchful peace. In 1165 AE, and I'm not sure if this is before or after, but Jormag, one of the Elder Dragon, the one we've been talking about the whole show, awoke in the Shiver Peaks, raising his own minions made of ice and snow to serve him. Now, since Norns don't fight as groups but more as individuals, tackling the dragon was near impossible, and they did not succeed in holding their homes, and they were forced to travel south into the mountains to the dwarf lands, which were abandoned by then. There, they established new homes. They founded new hunting grounds, but they also made new enemies. Now, the Dredge are some of them, and also were the dwarves' enemies, and they fight to this day for dominance over parts of the Shiver Peak. When Jormag awoke, it moved south to claim its land. The Norn tried to fight this dragon, but none of them could, and as I said before, they fight alone, seeking for that one story that would make them immortal as Norn. But there was one Norn who could survive and return after leaving to fight Jormag. That Norn was Asgir. Is that his first name? I think it is.
I think that is, yeah.
Asgir Dragonrander. He actually stole a tooth from Jormag with the aid of the spirits of the wild. That fang is the sole trophy of their battles against the dragon. Asgir led his people south into the northern Shiver Peaks, aided by the spirits of the wild, and there they established Holbreck. And in that city, you can actually visit the Great Lodge, and that's where you can see the tooth displayed for everyone. And the tooth is actually called the Fang of the Serpent, which is Jormag's tooth. And here's a bit of info for you. That tooth, in-game, is buffed with a permanent invulnerability boon. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and actually, if I'll just interject for a second there, unless you were going to talk about it, that I think it's the Norn belief that anybody who cracks that tooth, when someone is able to physically crack that tooth, that means it's time for the Norn to assault Jormag, and they're ready to take him on.
Yeah, exactly.
And in Edge of Destiny, Ritlock...
Are you going to say spoiler?
Because he... it's not really... It's a spoiler a little bit, but he doesn't actually... Because he's got... Well, Ritlock, you know how he has the flame sword from... he's got Rurik's sword. They talk about how you might need a magic blade to break it.
Right.
And he has the sword, and he's like, should I do it? And then he just says, you know what, no, I should leave it for the Norn, because he's pretty convinced that if he were to hit it with his magic blade, it would break.
Right.
But he says, nah, I'll let it go. And he changes his mind. Because he doesn't want to steal that glory from a Norn.
Right.
That's surprisingly nice of him.
Well, he's a Char. I mean, they're not all Pumas with bad attitudes. Anyway.
But back to the history of the Norn and to the tooth. Knowing that there was no Norn capable of defeating Jormag, aside from doing serious damage to his teeth, Bear, Wolf, Raven, and Snow Leopard, the spirits of the wild, guided Asgir to lead the Norn south so that they could survive until someone strong enough could defeat the dragon. Meanwhile, and I think we talked about this, the spirits.
Yeah, Bridger kind of went over the other ones that stayed behind.
Yeah, they took damage from Jormag's action, and they defended against it. They stayed back to fight off the Elder Dragon. It's now, it's known that at least Owl has died during this. I'm not sure if Bridger went over that. I had to go take care of my son at that moment.
Yeah, he went over that. We've confirmed that Owl is gone, but the other ones we're not sure because of the lack of the have runes and that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've wondered, hey, why are there 4 worship per se and not the others? Well, there you have it. So Asgir is a Norn hero, but not much is known about him other than that. And Nut, I think that's his name, Knut.
Yeah, or it might be Newt, but it's,
Newt?
yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Let's call him Newt. Nut? I don't know.
Call him Newt, yeah.
Newt's White Bear, that's his last name. That's Asgir's grandson. He now oversees Holbrecht. His title is Master of the Lodge. He tests the young and celebrates their achievements with great moots. The Wolfborn, led by his 2 sons, keep the peace among them. And that's about it for the history of the Norn. Unless you had something else you wanted to add to this.
No, I think that covers it for me.
Mm-hmm.
As far as history goes, Dent, you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, and like we said, we kind of touched on the speculation and the one kind of question we had.
Mm-hmm.
We had a couple other questions, but unfortunately, I don't think we're running a little long as it is.
Yeah.
So we can do them in another episode. We'll save them and we'll do them later.
Definitely. We're actually planning on doing a Char Redux episode because there was a lot of information that we did not mention, and it was important information. So we're going to do a mini podcast, if you'd say. And I'm pretty sure that we could answer the questions that were asked in that episode as well.
Yeah, because we're not going to touch on any of the community piece. We're just going to go pretty much straight into the Char lore that we missed, but we can throw the kind of questions on at the beginning since there wasn't that many. And that's our plan for that. And then I guess our main episode, a second episode for this week, is going to be on the humans.
Yep.
A race that's near and dear to any Guild Wars 2 or Guild Wars 1 player's heart. So I know that, why would you do the humans? We know everything about them. Well, there might be a few things you don't really know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's going to be our job to try to inform you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got questions about the humans or things you want to hear answered.
And we're going to have a special guest on that episode, and that is Alucardalina. And she is from our community, but mainly she will be with the community section of our podcast, because she has a website called Project Tyria, which is a project about she basically takes screenshots from Guild Wars 1 and compares them with Guild Wars 2. And if you haven't seen the website, it's projecttyria.blogspot.com, and I'll actually put a link on the website so that you guys can actually just click on it so you'll be directed to it. But we will have her on our next show, not in the next one, but the Human Lore show, and hopefully she can stay with us to talk about the humans and speculate with us.
Yeah, so unless anybody has anything else they want to mention, I think we'll kind of wrap this one up. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's
Sounds
pretty
good
much
to
it.
me.
All right. Well, again, if you want to send us emails, ask us questions, hosts at chroniclesoftyria.com. We're working on getting a podcast kind of sub-forum on our forums. So if you are on our forums or want to sign up, you can go there and post your questions there as well. But for the meantime, you can ask him on our comment on the video on YouTube, or send us an email at hosts@chroniclesoftyria.com.
And if I've angered anybody, you can send all of the hate mail to me.
At chroniclesoftyria.com.
Yeah, DIINT @chroniclesoftyria.com.
Yep.
I welcome it.
And all right, so for Chronicles of Tyria podcast, episode 4, signing off. I'm Lag.
I'm Dint.
And I'm
gonna go next.
and I'm Naveen.
And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dint, you think I look like a Norn? You son of Svenir?